Okay, Socialism round 3. By crikey, this has been a long time coming. Okay, so we left it with social democracy, and we now pick up the baton in 1994. Well, perhaps, yeah, in 1994, when we had two things happen. First of all, we had Bill Clinton elected in the United States, and we also had Tony Blair take control of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. And between the two of them was defined the third way. Now, in order to understand the third way, we need to go back. We need to look at social democracy. We need to look at what Thatcher did with her neoliberalism and how that infused the third way. It will help tremendously if you've looked at my previous videos on parties in the UK, where I go through all of these, and I will link off to that in the footnotes if I remember. Shouldn't forget that. Okay, so social democracy. We start with a fairly simple situation. We have got the rich, the well-off, and the poor. And obviously that is not a healthy position for the society. So Keynes says, well, in order to make this better, what we need to do, we need to sort out, well, pretty much everything. We've got this big problem. The poor are starving, and we have this huge level of social inequality. That's not good for business. So what we're going to do, by business I mean society and actually the economy. So what Keynes does, he says, well, we're going to take a lot from you, and we're going to take a bit from you, and we're going to give it, or at least some of it, to you. And at the same time, we're not just going to give you a handout, we're also going to make various social reform, we're going to make various economic reforms, and that's pretty much it. Well, okay, that worked until about 1979, when everything changed. This is when neoliberal theory took over, and we start from the same premise. We've got the wealth, we've got the well-off, we've got the poor, but then we change things. We say, look, this is not really a very effective way of managing society. There's a lot of work for government trying to reorganize this, trying to take money from you and give it to you, and how much is the right amount, and what happens when we give it to you, and you know, by the time we give it to you, then that changes, and we've got to do something else. It's, look, this is not working, so let's try something else. And the neoliberal theory was very, very simple. It said, right, what we need here is a growing economy. If we've got economic growth, then we're creating a position whereby people can sort themselves out. So if we have growth, you can go for the time being, then we take our poor, and the economy's grown, so they are no longer as poor as they were. And the well-off, they're even better off, and the wealthier, well, they're wealthier still. Now, within this, we have got rising income inequality, but we're genuinely not worried about that. What we're impressed by is the fact that these guys have gone from there to there, and these guys have gone from here to here, and these guys have gone from here to this, and they're sorting themselves out. So all is well, according to neoliberal theory. If people are sorting themselves out, then they're going to be maximizing their utility in the economy. The economy is going to be growing. They're going to be making reasonable choices about what they want to do. And if they're all good little capitalists out there, then our society is going to be formed of good little capitalists, and it's going to be homogenous, and they're all going to be working together. We're going to have a sort of atomistic empathy. So everyone's good little capitalists. We're all the same, and everything's great. Except everything is not great. Blair came in 1994. He ultimately won power in 1997. And he said, look, we have got growth. Okay, we accept that these guys are doing better off, and these guys are better off, and these guys are fabulously better off. But look at this. These guys are still below the breadline. That means that they're not really capitalists. They haven't got any capital. We need to get these very, very poor people off the bottom of the, well, they'll still be on the bottom of the ladder, but we can't have them below the poverty line, because if they're below the poverty line, then they're really not in a position to benefit from capitalism. New Labour economic theory says, look, capitalism is a good thing, and we need to get everybody on board. So rather than saying, look, everyone's better off, a rising tide lifts all boats, we can do better than that, says New Labour. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the poor and we're going to lift them out of absolute poverty. We have to somehow get these guys across the breadline thus. And that is exactly what Blair did. And that meant that these characters, the poor, along with everybody else, was now enjoying a meaningful participation in a capitalist society. Capitalism being a good thing in this doctrine, that everybody is working really, really hard. Everybody is now in a position to make meaningful choices about what they want to do. So, at this point, you're probably saying, well, hang on a second, that just sounds like Thatcherism or neoliberalism. And to a certain extent, you're right. Look, we're not concerned about relative income. We're not concerned about reducing the income gap. What we're interested in is just creating people who can benefit from society here. So there's a difference there between capitalism and between Thatcherism and Blairism, or between the third way, and neoliberalism. But it wasn't just that. Again, this benefits a lot if you have an understanding of Thatcherism and neoliberalism. But let's put it this way, okay? Neoliberalism is all about going for growth. We have economic neoliberalism. We are embracing these packages here that are there to deliver growth, and we're looking to create a capitalist society. So we have a stability through common aspirations and common values. If everybody's a capitalist, then everybody is on the same page, and we have social stability as well as economic stability. And of course, if we've got growth, then everyone's doing better, and the society should be getting stronger just as the economy gets stronger. Now, that's all well and good. But for Blair, he had two problems. First of all, he had to differentiate himself from Thatcherism, and he had to deal with those people who were excluded from society. Excluded from capitalist society. And so he came up with two principal ideas. The first was social justice. Now, it says social justice on the tin, but in reality, it's more a package of economic reforms. These were designed to lift the very, very poor out of poverty. Now, we're not looking at redistribution here. We're not saying, look, here, have some money, so now you're not so poor. The point was about making capitalism work for them, making work accessible and work viable. So in other words, if you were prevented from getting a job, not because you didn't want a job, but because getting a job would have meant you couldn't afford to pay your family or childcare or whatever, feed your family or childcare, then this is what they were seeking to do. And we had a series of packages, the three that you really need to know about: Sure Start, tax credit, and minimum wage. These are not about giving you handouts. They're about allowing you to get onto the carousel, get onto the big party wagon that is capitalism, so you can start making meaningful life choices. We are here looking at a wholesale rejection of social democracy. We're not looking at the government as a reallocating mechanism of taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Here we're trying to make sure that everybody is rich. This is a hand up, not a handout. So this is not welfare as understood by your social democrats. Rather, it's a way of dismantling institutional barriers that prevent the very, very poor from benefiting from capitalism. So here's a big departure, not just from social democracy, although it is, but also from neoliberalism, pure hardcore neoliberalism. You're saying, look, there are certain institutional barriers that prevent the very, very poor from accessing capitalism. Let's sort those out. We're not just giving them money, we're allowing them to get a job, because that, of course, will mean that they are now part of our big capitalist society. And then in addition to that, where Thatcher and the neocons, had sought to achieve a more homogenous society, in the case of neoliberalism, in the case of New Labour, it was more an argument along the lines of pluralism and diversity. If everybody's different, then everybody's the same. So we can achieve social unity through the mechanism of multiculturalism. And here we had the proliferation of faith schools, we had the repeal of Clause 28, civil partnerships, lots of stuff that was designed to encourage pluralism and diversity. We're much more. Remember that it was Blair who allowed unlimited migration from the European Union. So it's very much a case of inclusion and pluralism and diversity, and that again was a differentiation from Thatcher. So we have economic differentiation and societal differentiation, but again at the same time we have a degree of continuity. We have growth, we have capitalism, but we add to that pluralism, diversity, and social justice. And in so doing, Blair was able to correct what he perceived to be the problems with Thatcherism, while simultaneously establishing some sort of differentiation between himself and capitalism to placate the more intransigent left-wing elements of the Labour Party, who obviously made their presence felt throughout the rest of his administration. So what does that mean for you? In terms of the third way, we accept that the market is more efficient than the state in terms of economics and services, in terms of generating growth, and indeed of delivering services like schools and hospitals and so on. This is where Blair came in with PFI and vastly expanded the provision of private services. The state changed subtly. I'll explain that in a second. The idea there that the government can't engineer improved outcomes. What it can do is create the environment in which the individual can improve themselves. We embrace capitalism. A rising tide lifts all boats, and the government's role becomes about ensuring access to capitalism, not trying to mitigate capitalism, not trying to take the edges off capitalism, but rather to ensure that everybody can join the party. So not just sort of turning the music down and saying, well, come on, you're having too much fun and they're not having enough fun. It's like, come on, everybody have fun. And those who are locked out are encouraged to come and join the party. In terms of service provision, we're looking at the government being a guarantor of service and a broker of services rather necessarily than the provider of the services themselves. And we see that in the building of hospitals and schools, and those then being leased back to the state and the academies and all of that sort of stuff. So we're seeing service provision being taken away from the sole provision of the state, and we're getting the private sector involved instead. We're using capitalism as a homogenizing force, but ultimately also multiculturalism, the idea that everyone's different and we're all the same. And again, I think I mentioned earlier that I wrote an article in Politics Review where we look at nationalism in the state, and I talk a little bit about Indonesia and the way in which Indonesia adopted multiculturalism almost counterintuitively as a homogenizing force. Pancasila, it's called unity through diversity, or unita via tingab, it's long, my Bahasa is very rusty. The Americans did it as well with ex pluribus unum. So what we're looking at there is that. Now, in terms of equality, yes, we're looking at moral value, we're looking at equality of opportunity, but what we're really looking at here is universal choice, that everybody should have a choice, and we're using choice as a way of improving services. I'm running out of time here. I didn't expect to spend quite so much time on this. We're looking at reform systems with the individual, forget empathy, embrace selfishness. That is the neoliberal mantra. We're seeing a schism there as we move from one form of socialism to the next. The third way really doesn't have anything in common with social democracy at all. Again, we're looking at a revised version of the state. The state is not there to provide, but rather to guarantee that the citizen can access what they want in the market. They are a guarantor of services. They ensure fair play and equal access. Again, everybody should be able to access the benefits of capitalism. In terms of social organization, we recognize that society is a collection of autonomous individuals, but we recognize also that it's about including everybody in that big picture. It doesn't matter what you are. You can be gay, you can be straight, you can be LGBTQ or X, you know what I mean. It doesn't matter. We're not excluding anybody from that particular party. And but same along races, same along religions, it's all about inclusion. And through diversity, we achieve unity. The economy, it's all about capitalism. A rising tide lifts all boats. But again, the key issue there is that the government's role is to ensure that all have access to the benefits of capitalism. Good. I'm sure you'll be able to go back, think about this, pause it, and have a good look at it. The other thing is you don't have to worry about prep because you're not in my class. I've done it for you. I'm going to sign off at this point. I'm going to pull up the notes on the thinkers. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I hope they're helpful. If they're not, let me know how I can make them more helpful. And if you did find them helpful, then by all means, please tell your friends. Remember that I can do these things for you. I can also do online tutorials if that's the sort of thing in which you're interested in. Just drop me a line. But most of all, use these videos. I hope they are helpful. They're designed to be so. And good luck in your exams. See you soon, I hope. Next up, some videos on ecologism. Everybody loves that, don't they? Hope so. See ya.